I'm Mabel. It's been a year since that fateful day when my world came crashing down. I still remember sitting in the Jefferson County Courthouse, the weight of the felony theft charge hanging over me like a dark cloud. The judge's words echoed in my ears, guilty. The room seemed to spin as I realized the magnitude of my actions. I was once a respected member of the community, known for my elegance and authority. I wore my pearls like a badge of honor, a symbol of my status and tradition. But now, those pearls felt like a noose around my neck, a constant reminder of my downfall. My son, Ethan, and his wife, Lily, had always been the center of my world. I thought I was doing what was best for them, protecting them from harm. But in my quest for control, I crossed a line. I invaded their privacy, stole from them, and betrayed their trust. It all started when I asked for a spare key to their apartment. I told them it was for emergencies, but deep down, I just wanted to keep an eye on them. They were hesitant at first, but Ethan, being the gentle soul he is, eventually gave in. Once I had the key, I couldn't resist the temptation to snoop. I would slip into their apartment when they were at work, looking through their things, reading their mail, and even stealing money from their freezer. I told myself it was for their own good, that I was investing in their future. But in reality, I was just feeding my own ego. Lily suspected something was wrong, but Ethan refused to believe her. He defended me, just like he always had. But eventually, the truth came out. Lily installed cameras in their apartment, and they caught me red-handed. The day the police came to my door was the worst day of my life. I tried to explain myself, to make them understand that I was just trying to help. But it was too late. The damage had been done. I was charged with felony theft and faced probation, community service, and restitution. The shame and humiliation were unbearable. My friends and neighbors turned their backs on me, and I found myself isolated and alone. But in the midst of my despair, I found a glimmer of hope. I started volunteering at the local library, and it was there that I began to learn the importance of boundaries and humility. I realized that I had been so focused on controlling others that I had lost sight of what really mattered. One day, I ran into Ethan and Lily at the farmer's market. It was the first time I had seen them since the courthouse. I was nervous and afraid, but I knew I had to face them. I apologized to them, and to my surprise, Ethan said he believed me. He said it would take time, but he was willing to give me a chance. That moment gave me the strength to keep going. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. I knew that I had a long way to go to earn back their trust, but I was determined to do it. Looking back, I realized that my actions were a result of my own insecurities and need for control. I was so afraid of losing my son and his family that I was willing to do anything to keep them close. But in the process, I pushed them away. I've learned that true love and respect are based on trust and boundaries. I've also learned that it's never too late to make amends. I may never fully regain the trust of my son and his wife, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show them that I've changed. As I sit here in my quiet kitchen, I look at the folded letter I wrote to Ethan and Lily. It's a letter of apology, a confession of my mistakes, and a promise to do better. I know that they may never forgive me, but I hope that one day they will be able to see the person I've become. I've learned that sometimes the harshest truths are the very beginning of rebirth. And I'm ready to embrace the new me, the me who is humble, kind, and respectful. I'm ready to start anew, and I'm grateful for the second chance I've been given. It all began with a simple request for a spare key. I was a woman of a certain age, raised in a small town in the South, where family and tradition were everything. I had always been a strong-willed and opinionated person, and I believed that I knew what was best for my son, Ethan. Ethan was a gentle and kind man, but he was also a bit naive. He worked in information technology, spending his days behind a computer screen. He was happy with his life, but I knew that he could be so much more. I wanted him to have the best of everything, and I was determined to make that happen. Lily, Ethan's wife, was a different story. She was a schoolteacher, full of warmth and compassion. She was also very independent and had a strong sense of privacy. She didn't appreciate my constant interference in their lives, and she made that clear. One warm Saturday morning, we gathered at Ethan and Lily's modest apartment. The air was filled with the smell of coffee, and the sunlight streamed through the blinds. But there was an underlying tension in the room, and I knew that something was about to happen. I had been circling the subject of the spare key for weeks, dropping hints about emergencies and break-ins. Finally, I decided to come right out and ask for it. I told them that it was for their own safety, that I wanted to be able to help them in case of an emergency. Lily was immediately opposed to the idea. She said that they didn't need anyone else with a key, that they could handle any situation on their own. Ethan, on the other hand, was torn. He knew that Lily was right, but he also didn't want to upset me. In the end, Ethan gave in. He said that we could think about it, but he didn't make any promises. I took that as a victory, and I left the apartment feeling satisfied. But as the days passed, I couldn't stop thinking about the key. I knew that Ethan and Lily were probably talking about it, and I was afraid that they would change their minds. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. One day, when I knew they were both at work, I slipped into their apartment with the key. I told myself that I was just checking on things, making sure that everything was okay. But once I was inside, I couldn't resist the temptation to look around. I started in the living room, looking through their mail and inspecting their belongings. I was shocked to find a large amount of cash hidden in the freezer. I couldn't believe that they would keep that much money in such an insecure place. I knew that I shouldn't take the money, but I couldn't help myself. I told myself that I was just borrowing it, that I would pay it back as soon as I could. I took $2,500 and stuffed it into my purse. I also found a pair of pearl earrings in Lily's jewelry box. They were beautiful, and I couldn't resist trying them on. I stood in front of the mirror, admiring myself, and for a moment, I felt like a queen. But then, I heard a noise outside. I panicked and quickly put the earrings back in the box. I was afraid that Lily or Ethan would come home and catch me. I left the apartment as quickly as I could, feeling guilty and ashamed. I knew that what I had done was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to admit it. Over the next few weeks, I continued to visit Ethan and Lily's apartment when they were at work. I would look through their things, steal a little more money, and even take a few small items. I told myself that I was just helping them, that I was making sure that they were safe. But Lily started to notice that things were missing. She suspected that someone had been in their apartment, but she didn't know who. She talked to Ethan about it, but he didn't believe her. He thought that she was just being paranoid. Finally, Lily decided to take matters into her own hands. She installed cameras in their apartment, hoping to catch the person who was stealing from them. It was only a matter of time before the cameras caught me. One day, when I was in the apartment, I heard a beep. I looked up and saw the camera lens staring at me. I froze, knowing that I had been caught. Lily and Ethan came home later that day and watched the footage from the cameras. They were shocked and devastated. They couldn't believe that I had betrayed their trust. Ethan was heartbroken. He had always looked up to me, and he couldn't understand why I would do something like this. Lily was angry and hurt. She felt violated and betrayed. I tried to explain myself, to make them understand that I was just trying to help. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and they didn't want to hear anything I had to say. The police were called, and I was arrested. I was charged with felony theft, and I faced a long and difficult legal battle. The trial was a nightmare. I sat in the courtroom, listening to the evidence against me, feeling ashamed and embarrassed. The judge found me guilty, and I was sentenced to probation, community service, and restitution. The shame and humiliation were unbearable. My friends and neighbors turned their backs on me, and I found myself isolated and alone. I lost everything that I had ever loved, and I didn't know how I was going to go on. But in the midst of my despair, I found a glimmer of hope. I started volunteering at the local library, and it was there that I began to learn the importance of boundaries and humility. I realized that I had been so focused on controlling others that I had lost sight of what really mattered. I also started writing a letter to Ethan and Lily. It was a letter of apology, a confession of my mistakes, and a promise to do better. I knew that they may never forgive me, but I hoped that one day they would be able to see the person I've become. One day, I received a letter from Ethan. It was a simple note, asking me if I would like to meet him for coffee. I was overjoyed. I couldn't believe that he was willing to give me a chance. When I met Ethan at the cafe, I was nervous and afraid. I didn't know what to say or how he would react. But when I saw him, I felt a sense of relief. He looked tired and sad, but he also looked like he was willing to listen. We sat down at a table, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of our past mistakes. Finally, Ethan spoke. He said that he was still angry, that he didn't know if he would ever be able to forgive me. But he also said that he believed that I had changed and that he was willing to give me a chance. I was overcome with emotion. I thanked him for his forgiveness, and I promised him that I would never let him down again. We talked for a long time that day about our past, our present, and our future. We shared our hopes and dreams, and we laughed and cried together. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. I knew that I had a long way to go to earn back their trust, but I was determined to do it. As I walked back to my car that day, I felt a sense of hope. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but I also knew that I had the strength and the courage to face it. I'm still learning to be a better person, to be more humble and more compassionate. I know that I will make mistakes along the way, but I'm committed to learning from them and growing as a person. I'm grateful for the second chance that I've been given, and I'm determined to make the most of it. I know that I may never fully regain the trust of my son and his wife, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show them that I've changed. In the end, I believe that love and forgiveness are the most powerful forces in the world. And I'm hopeful that one day, we will be able to heal the wounds of the past and build a stronger, more loving family.